up, gamers?
Yes, very much. Thank you so much to Another Indie and OneShark for providing a copy of Doors of Insanity for this preview. Also, I did some Googling after finishing this preview, and it turned out OneShark previously created a game called Chicken Assassin, which I actually translated into German way back when. Small world, but don't worry, this game didn't get any special treatment today. Doors of Insanity is a roguelite deck builder RPG about a weirdly green custom character fighting their way through a series of dungeons to, I suppose, kill gods so they can go to heaven. It's currently in early access, and it shows. There are typos everywhere, the game likes to freeze in the middle of combat, and the UI is an unfinished mess. Also, most skin tones in the character creator show up green or not at all. It's definitely an issue on my end. Maybe. I think. Actually, I have no idea. Gameplay will be immediately familiar to players of Slay the Spire. It's a turn-based card game. On your turn, spend your mana on the cards in your hand. These can deal damage, block incoming attacks, apply buffs and debuffs, and so on. You can see what each enemy will do on their turn, so play your hand accordingly. You earn additional cards during your playthrough. Finding the right balance of the different types is an engaging challenge, and building a deck with sweet synergy is super satisfying. This aspect works perfectly fine. If you enjoy this particular genre, you are guaranteed to get some degree of enjoyment out of it. I accidentally played Doors of Insanity for 9 hours on my first day, which says as much about the game as it does about me. In between battles, you get to choose between 2 or 3 rooms ahead of you. The doors tell you what to expect. Battles, merchants, random events, all the regular roguelite trappings. I love the presentation on these dungeon hallways. They're a wonderful CG adaptation of the 1930s cartoon aesthetic OneShark went with for the art style. Pretty much all 2D art in this title is absolutely gorgeous in its weirdness. Enemies are constantly bobbing around, and backgrounds have charming, fully animated details that really liven up the game world. When battling in the prison, for example, there's some unseen monster trying to break down a door off to the right. It's exquisitely drawn, especially considering that they really didn't have to put that amount of effort in. All of this is unfortunately undermined somewhat by your rather hideous hero, who will slap on just about any piece of gear they find. It is kinda neat to have all weapons, armor pieces, and artifacts visible on the character though, and looking absolutely ridiculous while traversing the Doors of Insanity only makes sense, I suppose. While we're on the presentation, let's talk music. It's an absolute mess of samples, heavy bass, and seemingly random voice clips. It's bizarre, it's discordant, it's hair-raising, and at times even uncomfortable. I love it, it's fantastic. Any situation is underlined by a score that cares more about conveying emotion than sounding traditionally pleasant. It takes a lot of confidence to go this crazy, and it absolutely paid off. Everything about this game's aesthetic feels like what would have happened if Ren and Stimpy had come out 60 years early, and I adore it. During your quest, you'll find new gear and artifacts. The latter provide passive abilities for the rest of the run, such as drawing additional cards or absorbing some damage every turn. While they are fairly weak on their own, combining multiple different kinds will increase your power level drastically. The biggest flaws I find with Doors of Insanity are weirdly all connected to the equipment system. To keep up with the ever more vicious enemies, you'll have to don better armor and wield bigger swords. Depending on their quality, weapons increase the damage you deal and your critical hit chance. The attack boost is almost always negligible. Inflicting 46 instead of 42 points of damage against a target with 800 health doesn't really change anything. The higher critical chance, on the other hand, can really turn a fight around. Have I not mentioned that critical hits deal double damage? It doesn't matter. People know what a critical hit is. So of the two stats, one is useless in comparison, but that's nothing compared to the absurdity of armor. You'll find helmets, breastplates, gauntlets, pants, and shields. Each grant additional defense and HP. Every point of defense reduces incoming damage by 1. Now, think about this. If a piece of armor ups your defense by 1 and your HP by 12, versus another with 3 defense and 3 HP, Which would you choose considering your base HP is 200? Well, 12 HP will let you survive an additional 12 points of damage, obviously. 3 points of defense, on the other hand, will have outperformed those extra HP after taking 4 hits, i.e. after about 2 rounds of combat. So again, 2 attributes, one of which is completely useless in comparison. Defense is by far the most important stat, especially when facing the many enemies with multi-hit attacks later in the run. It'll be the difference between taking 3 times 20 damage and not getting hurt at all. The lack of variety in viable builds could be counteracted by making the HP bonuses significantly higher, though it would take a lot to make up for how overpowered defense already is. The equipment mechanics would be inoffensive if it wasn't for the strange omission of a stat compare feature. Whenever you're in a shop or in a loot screen, there is no way to check what you already have on you. You'll just have to hope you remember correctly whether your pants grant 3 defense or 4, because otherwise you'll end up stockpiling a bunch of useless junk. Even more bizarrely, when with a merchant, you can look through your deck, but not at your gear. I can manage to keep track of my weapons stats and maybe a piece of armor or two, but having to memorize the values of my entire outfit isn't super enjoyable. Maybe if every bit of equipment had fixed stats, it'd be easier to remember visually, but they're all randomized. Now, it is entirely possible that this is some kind of statement, like you're struggling to keep your shit together and it's part of the titular insanity. If that's the case, okay, you do you. It's annoying, but I'm happy to generously call it interesting. If this is an oversight, however, players should absolutely be able to compare stats. And while you're at it, add the option to equip gear straight from the loot screen and merchant. Roguelites live and die with their pacing, and having to check your gear screen after every other battle kills the momentum. Also, fast mode is a great inclusion, but a faster mode would be nice. After my first few hours, I speed hacked the game with Cheat Engine to get through the door opening animations faster. As much as I like these transitions, they do get old eventually. Overall, I like Doors of Insanity quite a bit, but that's because I adore the genre too much.
You adore of Insanity, the genre, too much?
Oh my god, I adore of Insanity. The equipment system needs to be completely reworked. The fact that defense is the only useful stat runs counter to the customization that deck building games should be all about. I did have fun, and I'll definitely return to it when it hits 1.0. If you've played Slay the Spire to death, Doors of Insanity will offer a reasonable amount of entertainment. If you haven't played Slay the Spire, go play that instead. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. If you want to see more reviews, make sure you subscribe to HGC here on YouTube. Also go over to Twitter, follow hgczone.com and Bennet Does Games over there. And goodbye. See you later, gamers.